Hey everyone, welcome to the 3rd Division, and today I'll be talking about every conference in D3 football, all the teams each conference is made up of, the top teams in each conference, as well as other interesting facts. But before we dive right in, let me explain to you how D3 football works. As with all of Division 3 athletics, no athletic scholarships are allowed, but you can still get academic ones. This upcoming 2024 season, D3 football will be made up of 240 teams, split into 6 different regions of anywhere between 4 and 6 conferences. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And before anyone asks, there are no D3 football teams in Hawaii or Alaska. A link to an interactive map can be found using the link below. In D3 football, the regular season is 11 weeks long, with everyone getting 1 bye week, meaning everyone plays 10 games. But sometimes teams have to improvise their schedules because they're too good for their local competition, or because they're too far away from the rest of the division. As a result, it is often for some teams to play out of division opponents, a conference opponent twice, or even just settle with 9 games. When it comes to playoffs, D3 football has had a 32-team bracket since 2005, but based on what's been developing behind the radar, it will be expanding to 40 teams this fall. So how do you get a bid into the playoffs? Of the 30 conferences D3 football will have this fall, 28 of them will have automatic bids to the playoffs. The general rule is that if your conference has at least 6 teams, the conference champion gets an automatic bid. There are some exceptions, which I'll get into later in this video. I've also employed the help of Frank Rossi. He's one of today's most influential reporters of D3 football, to contribute insightful knowledge into this video. But as you watch this video about D3 football, it's easy to reconsider and think, why should I care? All I've ever watched is D1. Considering the largest division in college football has 240 teams, odds are you've heard of at least one of them. I'm also willing to bet you'll learn something interesting that'll make watching this entire video worth your time, and maybe that will convince you to start following D3 football a little more. Now that you have a general idea of how D3 football works, let's start showing where all the teams are located. We're going to start off with Region 1, located in the Northeast. Region 1 has the Commonwealth Coast Conference, the New England Small College Athletic Conference, the Massachusetts State Collegiate Athletic Conference, the New England Women's and Men's Athletic Conference, the Eastern Collegiate Football Conference, and the Middle Atlantic Conference. As the most tightly packed region of all of college football, it's very difficult for many of these teams to stand out, but as I go in depth into each conference, we'll see which teams have been able to stand out from the rest. The Commonwealth Coast Conference, or the CCC for short, has Curry, Endicott, Husson, Nichols, the University of New England, and Western New England. The CCC has been dominated by Endicott as they have won the conference title each of the past 3 seasons, but they have yet to pull off a playoff victory despite coming within a possession each of those times. Did you know that the University of New England is one of 4 D3 football schools with the colored turf? In 2025, the CCC will add Maine Maritime and New England College, which means there will be 3 schools called New England in the same conference. But even this fall, Maine Maritime is scheduled to play a mix of JV games and 2 varsity games against D3 opponents. The New England Small College Athletic Conference, or the NESCAC for short, has Amherst, Hamilton, Middlebury, Tufts, and Williams. 3 more are in the state of Maine: Bates, Bowdoin, and Colby. Lastly, there are 2 more in Connecticut: Trinity College and Wesleyan. The NESCAC is considered the Ivy League of D3 sports. They are extremely selective small colleges with massive endowments. But as far as football goes, not only is it the only one that forbids playing non-conference games, but it also forbids competing in the playoffs. It's a move that's set to prioritize academics, but that argument doesn't hold up when you consider the fact its basketball teams are allowed to do so. One rivalry in this conference that stands out is between Amherst and Williams, dubbed the biggest little game in America. But if you're looking for the best team in this conference, Trinity College has historically been the best with the most conference championships, except last fall, Middlebury beat them for a share of the conference title. The Massachusetts State Collegiate Athletic Conference, or the MASCAC for short, has Bridgewater State, Fitchburg State, Framingham State, UMass Dartmouth, Mass Maritime, Plymouth State, Western Connecticut, Westfield State, Worcester State, and new for this upcoming season, Castleton. It was originally planned that in 2025, the conference would add 2 more teams from another conference, making a total of 12 teams. But that wasn't before the conference later planned on booting 4 of its own and then later backtracked on 2 of them. This means Castleton will be a part of the MASCAC for just 1 season, season, and Western Connecticut has yet to find a new home for 2025. Since the conference was formed in 2013, Framingham State has had the most success, but they have dipped in recent years. Nowadays, the best teams are Bridgewater State, UMass Dartmouth, and Western Connecticut, but if you ask me, WestCon has the best stadium. The New England Women's and Men's Athletic Conference, or the New MAC for short, has Coast Guard, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Norwich, Salve Regina, Springfield, and Worcester Polytechnic Institute. Two more are very close to each other just outside of New York City, Merchant Marine and SUNY Maritime. One would think that this close proximity between these two schools breeds a rivalry like no other, but the big rivalry in this conference is actually Merchant Marine and Coast Guard, the Secretary's Cup, Army versus Navy of D3 football. These two schools have been duking it out every year since 1974, with Merchant Marine leading the all-time series 37-15. The game is played on week 11 of every season on Veterans Day, broadcast nationally on ESPN+. But the best team in the conference, which hasn't lost a conference game in 3 seasons, is Springfield. The Eastern Collegiate Football Conference, or the ECFC for short, has Alfred State, Anna Maria, Dean, and Gallaudet. The ECFC is D3 football's football-only conference, and perhaps the worst of them all. It's a conference made up of independents who couldn't find a home or new programs who needed a temporary home in D3 football. Despite the ECFC having only 4 teams, the conference champion will still get an automatic bid to the playoffs. Conferences that fall below the minimum requirement of 6 teams have 2 years to get back up to 6. Or, if they fall below 4, their automatic bid is gone. This fall will be the second year the ECFC has less than 6 teams. It will also be the ECFC's last in existence. Dean and Anna Maria accepted invitations to join the MASCAC as full members in 2025. Alfred State will join a conference in Region 2, and Gallaudet will join a conference in Region 3. Gallaudet's football team is based in a school for the deaf and hard of hearing, which makes it the nation's only deaf and hard of hearing football program. It made national headlines when its football program partnered with AT&T to develop 5G wireless helmets, removing the communication barrier of hearing. It got permission from the NCAA to have one player, its quarterback, use the helmet for one game this past fall. But if you ask which of these 4 teams are the best, all I will say is it's not Dean. The last conference in Region 1 is likely the strongest, the Middle Atlantic Conference, or the MAC for short. It has Delaware Valley, Eastern, Fairleigh Dickinson University at Florham, Lebanon Valley, Stevenson, and Widener. 2 more are in a city called Reading, Alvernia, and Albright, and 2 more are further up north around Wilkes-Barre, Kings, and Misericordia. While the rest of Region 1 is in the New England area for the most part, the MAC is fully outside of New England, often limiting the MAC team's ability to face in-region opponents in out-of-conference games. The MAC has been nothing but one team for the past 6 seasons, Delaware Valley. The Aggies have not lost a single conference game and have also made 3 trips to the national quarterfinals in that time frame. Much of that success can be attributed to their national caliber defense, but during this offseason, their head coach Duke Greco left to take a head coaching job at a nearby D2 school in the Philadelphia area, so we will have to see if their successor can live up to the success their program has had in recent years. If you are enjoying this content, consider subscribing to the 3rd Division on YouTube, hit the like button, and drop a comment below. Region 2 has the Liberty League, the Empire 8, the President's Athletic Conference, the Landmark Conference, the Centennial Conference, and the New Jersey Athletic Conference. The Liberty League has Buffalo State, Hobart, Ithaca, the University of Rochester, and St. Lawrence. 2 more are in the eastern part of New York, known as the Capital District, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and Union. The Liberty League, since transitioning from their former UCAA moniker many years ago, was led by the 3-headed monster of RPI, Hobart, and Union. But lately, new entrant Ithaca has been the star of the show. Their stadium, Butterfield Stadium, is one of my favorites, as it overlooks Cayuga Lake. But RPI's East Campus Athletic Village is considered one of the best stadiums in all of D3 football. The Empire 8 has Alfred University, Brockport, Cortland, Hardwick, Hilbert, Morrisville, St. John Fisher, and Utica. Hilbert will represent the Empire 8 for the 2024 season, and then move over to the Liberty League for the 2025 season and beyond. This is because Alfred State will join the Empire 8 in 2025. This allowed both D3 football conferences in New York to set up a non-conference scheduling agreement, as both will have the same number of teams. Cortland also has a rivalry with with Ithaca from the Liberty League that spans generations in a game known as the Cortica Jug. At Yankee Stadium in 2022, over 40,000 fans attended, and at MetLife Stadium in 2019, the Jug set the highest ever attended D3 football game with over 45,000 fans. And whether you believe this is a coincidence or not, but Cortland was the first D3 football team from the East to win a Stag Bowl in over 30 years. The last team to do so was Ithaca. Moving over to Western Pennsylvania, we have the President's Athletic Conference, or the PAC for short. It's the largest D3 football conference with 11 teams. It has Allegheny, Bethany, Carnegie Mellon, Case Western Reserve, Geneva, Grove City, St. Vincent, Teal, Washington and Jefferson, Waynesburg, and Westminster. With 11 teams, the entire conference's regular season is nothing but regular season games. This problem is exacerbated when a 12th team from a conference in Region 4 joins next year, which won't even make it possible to play everyone, but it does mean the return of the Pac-12. But to address these problems, the Pac-12 will do several things starting in 2025. It will allow 2 out-of-conference games each season, split into 2 divisions of 6 teams, and have the best of those 2 divisions play a championship game in Week 11. The geography of the 2 divisions might not make total sense, and that's partially because Carnegie Mellon and Case Western Reserve are football affiliates and not full members of the PAC. The hot topic of this conference is Grove City, which not only won the conference last year, but won its first ever playoff victory last fall. Less than 10 years ago, they didn't win a single game in 3 seasons. Other strong teams in this conference are Carnegie Mellon, Washington and Jefferson, and Case Western Reserve. Moving over to the eastern side of Pennsylvania, we have the Landmark Conference, which has Catholic, Juniata, Keystone, Lycoming, Moravian, Susquehanna, and Wilkes. This is a conference that started sponsoring football as recently as last year, and from the looks of it will be dominated for quite some time by none other than Susquehanna. When the conference was formed, Susquehanna was the only team with more wins than losses in the previous 10 seasons. The only other teams that are remotely worth considering are Wilkes and Lycoming. But because the entire conference signed a 5-year deal with the streaming service Flow Sports, you have to pay $20 a month to watch everything. And starting this fall, this arrangement will also include the new MAC Conference, a conference in Region 3, and another conference in Region 6, which we'll get to later. And while only a handful of other individual schools charge you to watch their content, having entire conferences join the subscription train is a trend many do not like to see. Moving in closer to southeastern Pennsylvania, we have the Centennial Conference, which has Dickinson, Franklin and Marshall, Gettysburg, Johns Hopkins, McDaniel, Muhlenberg, and Ursinus. With 12 playoff appearances since 2005, Johns Hopkins has been the team to beat. Given the national reputation Johns Hopkins has, they're able to recruit and field a team from all over the country. But Muhlenberg has also had a lot of success recently as well, making it to the national semifinals in 2019 and the quarterfinals in 18 and 21. But overall, the Centennial Conference is a very strong one, the best one in the East that isn't in New York. And lastly, in Region 2, we have the New Jersey Athletic Conference, or the NJAC for short. It has Christopher Newport, Rowan, Salisbury, and the College of New Jersey. 3 more are closer to New York City: Kane, Montclair State, and William Patterson. As far as enrollment goes, the NJAC has 2 of the largest, Rowan and Montclair State with over 14,000 each. But their football teams are very mid these days. The NJAC used to be a very strong conference, and that was with the help of a school that no longer exists, Wesley College. They made it to the semifinals 6 times since 2005. The NJAC gave Wesley their final home after years of conference roulette and independent status, but they had to shut down in 2021 due to shrinking enrollment over the years. Prior to Wesley, Rowan was a frequent Stag Bowl participant in the 1990s, but the Profs became known as the Buffalo Bills of D3 football as they lost all 5 of their national championship appearances. They've since slipped into relative obscurity, and will now have a new head coach after Jay Accorsi stepped down after 22 seasons. Since Wesley's demise, the overall performance of the conference has dipped. There is a yearly ranking of conferences that D3Football.com has put together over the years. The NJAC ranked 6th in 2018, but have fallen to the bottom half of D3 football. But stick around until later in this video when we talk about a conference in Region 4 whose performance has gone in the opposite direction. Region 3 has the Old Dominion Athletic Conference, the USA South Athletic Conference, the Southern Athletic Association, the Southern Collegiate Athletic Conference, and the American Southwest Conference. The Old Dominion Athletic Conference, or the ODAC for short, has Averett, Bridgewater College, Ferrum, Guilford, Hampton-Sydney, Randolph-Macon, Shenandoah, and Washington and Lee. Randolph-Macon had their best season ever just last year, making it to the national semifinals. They also have a rivalry with Hampton-Sydney, one of 3 all-male D3 football schools. Ferrum has applied for a Division II membership and plans to leave D3 in the summer of 2025. At the same time, Roanoke will start fielding its first varsity team competing in the ODAC. Their home stadium is going to be a site of significant D3 football history, Salem Football Stadium, the site of 26 Stag Bowls. And also, Gallaudet will join the ODAC. The USA South Athletic Conference, or just the USA South, has Belhaven, Brevard, Greensboro, Huntington, LaGrange, Maryville, Methodist, North Carolina Wesleyan, and Southern Virginia. The geographic diversity of this conference should be noted since it spans Virginia down to the Deep South. In recent years, Huntington has been the team to beat, winning 6 conference championships in the last 8 seasons. Belhaven had only joined the ranks of D3 as recently as 2015 and were not a very good team. That was until Blaine McCorkle took over, leading them to their first conference championship last fall. But during this off-season, he took a D1 FCS coaching job in Louisiana. Another team to look out for in this conference is Maryville. The Southern Athletic Association, or the SAA for short, has Berry, Center, Hendricks, Millsaps, Rhodes, Sewanee, Southwestern, and Trinity University. The 2 good teams in this conference are Trinity and Berry. Berry had only started fielding a team in 2013 and hasn't had a losing season since 2015. Last fall was their best season ever. They had an offense that averaged over 54 points per game and trailed in all but 1 quarter in their regular season to none other than Trinity, who ended up being the sole reason they missed the playoffs. This conference also had Birmingham Southern, which unfortunately shut down during this off-season. As a result, the SAA has announced a scheduling deal with the ODAC in 2024 to replace the now missing Birmingham Southern games on the SAA schedules. Millsaps is located down the street from Belhaven in the USA South, and play each other every year in Week 1, known as the Riverside Rumble. But Millsaps has yet to see any of the success Belhaven has had in recent years. The Southern Collegiate Athletic Conference, or the SCAC for short, not to be confused with the SCIAC, which we'll get to later, has Austin, Centenary, Lyon, McMurray, and Texas Lutheran. This is a conference which is bringing back football for the first time since 2016. Since it's starting off with 5 teams, it won't have an automatic bid until it snags Hendricks from the SAA in 2025. And in 2026, Schreiner will start varsity football to become its 7th member. Along with the Landmark's new automatic playoff bid in 2023, the SCAC future bid is one of the large reasons Division III finally decided to expand the playoff field beyond 32 teams. In the meanwhile, the conference has implemented a double round robin to reduce its non-conference slate from 6 to 2. Centenary is bringing back football, which will play its first varsity season this fall. But overall, this conference shouldn't be anything to write home about. The last conference in Region 3 is the American Southwest Conference, or the ASC for short. It has East Texas Baptist, Hardin-Simmons, Howard Payne, and Mary Hardin-Baylor. As recently as last fall, this conference competed with twice as many teams it will have this fall. That's because Sul Ross moved to D2, while Austin, Texas Lutheran, and McMurray switched to the SCAC. This conference even included Southwestern and Belhaven, so why is everyone running away? The answer is because everyone can't compete with Mary Hardin-Baylor and Hardin-Simmons. Mary Hardin-Baylor, as recently as 2021, was head and shoulders above the rest of D3 football, and had been to their 4th Stag Bowl in 5 years, winning 3 of them. If you look at Mary Hardin-Baylor's Crusader Stadium, you'll notice how it has no business being a D3 football stadium. Like the SCAC, the ASC has also implemented a double round robin to reduce their non-conference slate from 7 to 4, as well as the fact the winner of this conference will be able to go to the playoffs for at least the next 2 seasons. The future of this conference looks very grim. Non-football playing schools of the ASC have plans to join other conferences in the future, leaving the ASC with its 4 football playing members in 2025. All of Region 4 is located in Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan. It has the Ohio Athletic Conference, the North Coast Athletic Conference, the Heartland Collegiate Athletic Conference, and the Michigan Intercollegiate Athletic Association. The Ohio Athletic Conference, or the OAC, has Baldwin-Wallace, Heidelberg, John Carroll, Marietta, Mount Union, Muskingum, Ohio Northern, and Wilmington. 2 more are in the Columbus area, Capital and Otterbein. For the past 10 seasons, John Carroll has found itself as being the second best team in the OAC, and even pulled off an outright conference title in 2016. John Carroll is also known for their matriculation of coaches and executives in the NFL, because Don Shula went there. 2024 will be John Carroll's last year in the OAC, since they're moving to another conference in Region 4. More on that in a bit. As for the best team in the OAC, with a D3 record, 13 national championships, the school to beat in this conference has been Mount Union since the early 1990s. And although they've continued their dominance in the OAC, their performance in recent years has caused many to question if their best days are behind them. En route to their most recent national championship in 2017, they had to come back down 35-10 to win in the semifinals. In 2018, they made it to the Stag Bowl and lost. In 2019, they dropped 59 points to lose in the second round, which was the first time they missed the semifinals since 1994. In 2021, they had to win in overtime in the quarterfinals, only to get beat in the semifinals. In 2022, they had to rely on a freak Hail Mary play to win the OAC title. Then in the semifinals, they were 1 play away from losing. And then they lost in the Stag Bowl again. And in 2023, many believed they would finally win a Stag Bowl again, only to blow it in the second round for the second time in 4 years. But while Mount Union's football team remains the best in the OAC, Muskegon's football stadium, paired with their health and wellness complex, makes theirs stand out from the rest. The North Coast Athletic Conference, or the NCAC for short, has Denison, DePauw, Hiram, Kenyon, Oberlin, Ohio Wesleyan, Wabash, Worcester, and Wittenberg. DePauw has owned the conference each of the past 3 seasons, but they also have a huge rivalry with Wabash known as the Monon Bell game. It's so big that the bell itself has been stolen several times, and the game was broadcast nationally in past years, including on ABC in the 1970s. But while John Carroll moves to the NCAC in 2025, and presumably recalibrates the balance of power in the conference, Hiram will be leaving to join the President's Athletic Conference. Moving on over to the worst conference in Region 4, we have the Harlan Collegiate Athletic Conference, or the HCAC for short. It has Anderson, Bluffton, Franklin, Hanover, Manchester, Mount St. Joseph, and Rose-Hulman. The 2 teams that have dominated this conference in recent years are Mount St. Joseph and Rose-Hulman. Last fall, the HCAC also had Defiance, but they will be switching to NAIA this fall. Lastly, in Region 4, we have the Michigan Intercollegiate Athletic Association, or the MIAA for short. The literal oldest collegiate athletic conference, founded in 1888, now has Adrian, Albion, Alma, Calvin, Hope, Kalamazoo, Olivet, and Trine. This conference has recently exploded in competitiveness, from being 21st in 2019 to 11th last fall. The team to beat is Alma, as they've won back-to-back conference championships, as well as shocking the D3 football world last fall by beating Mount Union in the second round. Quarterback Carter St. John led the Scots in that incredible game, and has since become a beacon of leadership in D3 football, starting Quarterbacks vs. Cancer with fellow D3 quarterbacks, raising money to fight cancer in a unified effort. Another solid team in this conference is Hope, who after hiring head coach Pete Sturzma in 2016, has averaged no more than 1 conference loss in all but 1 season, winning the conference outright in 2019. New for 2024 is Calvin, which I firmly believe will be a team to be reckoned with in the conference pretty soon. We will have to see if the greatest rivalry in D3 basketball can transfer over to football when they face Hope. Region 5 has the Collegiate Conference of Illinois and Wisconsin, the Northern Athletics Collegiate Conference, the Midwest Conference, and the American Rivers Conference. The Collegiate Conference of Illinois and Wisconsin, or the CCIW for short, has Augustana College, Carroll, Carthage, Illinois Wesleyan, Millikan, and Washington University in St. Louis. 4 more are in the Chicago area: Elmhurst, North Central, North Park, and Wheaton. With 4 straight appearances in the Stag Bowl and 2 victories, North Central has been today's team to beat in all of D3. They'll need 1 more to match Augustana's record streak of 5 from 1982 to 1986, which in that time frame have won 4 in a row, the only team to do so. North Central has a rivalry with Wheaton, now the second best team in the CCIW, known as the Battle for the Little Brass Bell. But overall, the CCIW is one of the strongest conferences in D3 football. The Northern Athletics Collegiate Conference, or the NAC for short, has Eureka, Lakeland, Rockford, and St. Norbert. 3 more are in the Chicago area: Aurora, Benedictine, and Concordia, Chicago, and 2 more are in the Milwaukee area: Concordia, Wisconsin, and Wisconsin Lutheran. Ever since former NFL wide receiver Don Beebe took over at Aurora in 2019, they have not lost a single conference game, and solidified themselves in the D3Football.com Top 25 poll. If you look at the east side of Chicago, Aurora, Wheaton, and North Central are all top 25 teams, which makes these 3 teams the best and closest group of teams in all of D3 football. The Midwest Conference has Beloit, the University of Chicago, Cornell, Grinnell, Illinois College, Lake Forest, Lawrence, and Ripon. 2 more are in Western Illinois: Knox and Monmouth College. Monmouth has been a consistently good program for several years running, finding themselves at or just under the top of the conference. They do have a rivalry with Knox, known as the Bronze Turkey, but Knox is just not known for football. Another solid team in this conference is Lake Forest, but last year's surprise team was Illinois College, who took home their first conference championship last fall with their explosive passing attack. The selection committee has continuously pitted the conference champion of the Midwest Conference against some of the top teams in the bracket, showing the committee's view of the strength of the Midwest Conference. But when the playoffs expand in 2024, it may help the Midwest Conference survive a bit longer in the bracket. Lastly, in Region 4, we have the American Rivers Conference, or the ARC for short. It has Buena Vista, Central, Coe, Luther, Nebraska Wesleyan, Simpson, and Wartburg. 2 more are in Dubuque, and Loris. This conference used to be known as the Iowa Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, until it snagged Nebraska Wesleyan as a full member from NAIA in 2016. The team to beat in this conference is Wartburg, as the Knights have made back-to-back appearances in the national semifinals, each time coming within reach of the Stag Bowl. Other strong teams in this conference are Coe, Central, and Dubuque. In 2021, Central's quarterback Blaine Hawkins won the Gallardi Trophy, the Heisman Trophy for D3 football, after setting the all-divisions single-season record of 63 pass touchdowns. Region 6 has the Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, the Minnesota Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, the Upper Midwest Athletic Conference, the Northwest Conference, and the Southern California Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. The Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, or the WIAC, or WIAC as the natives call it, has La Crosse, Oshkosh, Platteville, Stevens Point, and Whitewater. 3 more are closer to Minneapolis: Eau Claire, River Falls, and Stout. This is the SEC of D3 football. There are no D2, NAIA, or D1 FCS football schools in Wisconsin. The only other college football program in Wisconsin that isn't D3 are the Badgers in Madison. And because all the WIAC schools are public schools in the University of Wisconsin system, tuition is lower. So much so that it is on average half as much as the 9 other D3 football schools in Wisconsin. The combination of the lack of schools in other divisions and the lower cost of tuition makes the WIAC conference the SEC of D3 football. It has been ranked the #1 conference on D3Football.com for 2 decades. As a result, many of the top WIAC schools are forced to play out-of-division opponents such as NAIA or D2. But as far as the best team in the conference goes, between 2007 and 2014, Whitewater won 6 Stag Bowls, and has maintained themselves as one of, if not the best team in the conference for 20 years. Whitewater's Perkins Stadium is known for housing many of the largest crowds in the history of D3 football, including the highest ever attendance at a D3 football stadium at over 20,000 just last year. But in the last few years, La Crosse has found themselves being one of the best, beating Whitewater by a game-winning field goal to win the conference last fall. River Falls, after suffering 2 decades of mediocrity, has also found success in recent years with their explosive offense. Oshkosh and Platteville are also very strong teams as well. Even Stout managed to drop 3 touchdowns in the 4th quarter to come within 5 points of beating La Crosse last fall. But with the exception of Stout, Eau Claire, and Stevens Point, this conference is made up of top 25 teams, or teams that are receiving votes. The Minnesota Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, or the MIAC for short, has Concordia Moorhead, Gustavus Adolphus, St. John's, and St. Scholastica. 4 more are in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area: Augsburg, Hamlin, Bethel, and McAllister, and 2 more are in Northfield, Carleton, and St. Olaf. The MIAC is one of the best conferences in D3 football, and that is thanks to generations of success by St. John's with the help of John Gallardi, the winningest college football coach of all time. Even today, St. John's is the team to beat, but another team that has stood out is Bethel. St. John's used to have a rivalry with a school called St. Thomas, called the Tommy Johnny game. St. Thomas was good enough to make 2 Stag Bowl appearances in the 2010s, but in 2019, several MIAC schools, without the support of St. John's, got together to oust St. Thomas from the MIAC because they were too competitive, and had no option but to bring all their athletics from D3 to D1. The Upper Midwest Athletic Conference, or the UMAC for short, has Crown, Martin Luther, Minnesota Morris, and Northwestern St. Paul. This conference actually has 6 teams, so where are the other 2? All the way down in Southern Illinois and Missouri, where Greenville and Westminster College are, not to be confused with the first Westminster College in Pennsylvania. The UMAC is made up of very small schools. 4 of 6 have undergraduate enrollments of under 1,000. This makes the conference one of the worst of them all. And because virtually all of their non-conference competition is too good for them, every UMAC team has to play 2 conference opponents twice just to make it more competitive for themselves. Even worse is that after St. Thomas was ejected from the MIAC, the best UMAC team, St. Scholastica, was taken from the UMAC and brought into the MIAC fold. The last 2 D3 football conferences in Region 6 are on the west coast of the United States. The Northwest Conference is made up of 8 teams around Portland, Tacoma, and Spokane. The Portland area has George Fox, Lewis and Clark, Linfield, Pacific, and Willamette. Tacoma has Pacific Lutheran and Puget Sound, and Spokane has Whitworth. Linfield is the most successful of this bunch, as they've had 67 consecutive winning seasons, and also haven't registered 3 losses in a season since 2008. Because the Northwest Conference is so far away from the rest of the division, many teams consistently struggle to fill a 10-game schedule. But starting last fall, 4 teams from Portland, excluding Linfield for the reason I just mentioned, started playing the Oregon Cup, which is where each team will play each other twice until 2026. Another strong team in this conference is Whitworth, who actually managed to beat Linfield for the Northwest Conference title last fall, as well as back in 2018. An interesting fact about this conference is that it competed in NAIA until 1996, when it completely transitioned to D3. The last conference in D3 football is the Southern California Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, or the SCIAC for short. It has California Lutheran, Chapman, and Redlands. Moving in closer, we have Laverne. And even closer are 2 joint intercollegiate sports programs made up of 5 different colleges. Claremont Mudd Scripps is made up of Claremont McKenna College, Harvey Mudd College, and Scripps College, while Pomona Pitzer is made up of Pomona College and Pitzer College. Today, this conference is nothing to write home about, but there was the time Chapman dropped 68 points on Linfield's defense in 2019. It used to have a historically successful team in Occidental before they dropped their program in 2020. It also had Whittier, which dropped their program after the 2022 season, but there are rumors they want to bring it back. Since it's down to 6 teams and near no one else in D3 football, the conference created a championship game and divisions to limit their non-conference slate. And that is every single D3 football team.